Hello and welcome to Mann's Model Moments and another Tuesday talk. So as I record this, we are only a few days away from Scale Model World International at Telford in the UK, which is still the world's largest model show. And after a bit of uncertainty as to whether I'm going or not, I'm actually going to be there for the full 2 days. There was a bit of touch and go. I had a bit of an issue with my foot, which meant, standing and walking around 3 massive halls for the weekend when, you've got a problem with the sole of your foot that you can't put it down properly. Not the best. I then had the flooding at the shop, the financial situation I'm in at the moment. But ultimately managed to get kind of all of those manageable. So I will be going down on the Friday night, staying over Friday and Saturday through to the Sunday. So we are organising a meal for channel members, so if you'd like to get in touch, if you're a channel member, please go on the Discord, sign up to the When to Meet, and we're getting a group of us so I know what size tables to book for both the Friday and the Saturday night I think we're looking at. So that is a bit of an aside. A couple of things came out. I talked about Telford on the midweek model meet with some guests a while ago, and there were a couple of things about model shows in general, and obviously I went to the Oval model show. You can check out the video if you didn't see that quite recently. And for me, there's a couple of reasons why people go to model shows. And one of them is to buy new models, obviously. And there's a couple of subdivisions of that. One is to purchase bargains, see what's on offer, get the maximum out of your money, which is smart. And the second is to get that rare, probably second-hand, out-of-production kit that you just can't find anywhere else. I don't think many people go to model shows just to pick up a regular, Spitfire starter set. I'm not saying that people don't, I'm just saying I don't think that's the intent when people go. Now, obviously, if you're going with children and things, then those kind of things get picked up along in the wash, if you like. But people generally, if they're going to purchase stuff from a model show, I think are looking for those bargains and looking for those rare, the kit I've always wanted to get and never managed to get kind of thing. And then obviously all of the reasons that people go to shows are for competition. That's a big thing for people, either participating or to see what that is, for inspiration. And also to see kind of what's new. We know that the ICM Hampton sprues are going to be on display at the Hobby Company this year. We're going to see probably a new release from Airfix, which we're all waiting with bated breath for. There'll be other things as well there that, will capture our attention. Again, I don't think it's the main reason people go to model shows, but it's one of those added things. And then there's the whole going just to the show because it's a show, because it's a social occasion, we want to catch up with people, we want to see what's there, we want to be inspired, we want to see the club stands. That's kind of the show for the show itself, if you like. And I think that's a big part of what a lot of people do go for. So I'm kind of going for a little bit of a different reason. Obviously, being a YouTube creator now, I'm going to cover the show. I want to see the show, but I also want to show it to all of the people that can't make it. So I know I have a lot of US viewers, so I want to give you a kind of a flavour of the experience as it would be when you go to the show. I'm going to try and get really good coverage of everything. So traders, club stands, the competition. I'll try and see if I can get some interviews with people whilst I'm there. I don't know whether that will happen. People are usually very busy at Telford, so it's not necessarily an ideal time. But we'll have a look at that. And so I'll put together a couple of videos probably for Telford once I've been. And again, if there's anything particular that overseas visitors, people that can't make it, want to see from Telford, then please do let me know through the channel email. You can find that in the About section of my YouTube channel homepage. It's not a public email address as such. You can go in, when you go into the About, it shows my email there. It's the same email as the shop email, so if you'd rather go to my shop, mansmodelmoments.com, and go to the contact section, there's actually a little chat bot. You can just ask what my contact details, and it will give you all of those there. And just get in touch. Let me know what you want to see. I'll try my best to fulfill those. Now, with all of that in mind, looking at what is out there for a Tuesday talk, a few days before is kind of challenging. But actually, there is one company, kind of two companies, but three nearly, that's been quite busy this last week and will probably not be at Scale Model World. And that's because they're based in China. It's obviously the Yongshan Yatai company that is the owner, or progenitor, if you like, of the brands Trumpeter, Hobby Boss, I Love Kit, possibly some others. But China's been quite active in the past few months. And if you recall, one of my early Tuesday talks was on China, was on the big Chinese parade, military parade this year. They showed a lot of new military tech, a lot of new systems that we'd not seen before. And it's really interesting because here we are only a few months later, and we have several of those actually showing their faces. So the first is one I'm actually quite excited about. It's not from Trumpeter or Hobby Boss. It's actually from Mann Model, and that is the Chinese ZTZ-100 main battle tank. So this is the new battle tank that we saw in the parade. It's got quite a distinctive look. It's got this chunky sort of modular armour, it's got a remote turret, it's got all these other bits. And Mann are releasing a 1/35th scale kit of that. Quite excited about that because from Mann it will be generally available. We do see kits from Bronco of some of these subjects quite often, but Bronco aren't very well distributed in the UK. Don't know what it's like in the US, but I suspect it's probably similar. Whereas Mann, very well distributed, pretty easy to get hold of their kits, so it's likely that we'll see that in stores. I'm guessing 2026. You never know, it might make it for Christmas, we'll see. The other thing we saw is a slightly less interesting subject from a personal point of view, but one that will be absolutely massive, even though this is going to be 1/72nd scale, is because this is the new DF61 ICBM and launcher. So it's less interesting to me because it's a big truck, kind of square truck thing with a big tube on top. Doesn't look particularly interesting from my personal view, but it's over a foot long in 1/72nd scale. It's 220 parts, which is pretty massive for a 1/72nd scale military vehicle kit. The other thing that's really interesting about this kit is that they supply the digital camo on this as decals. Now, ICM have done this before on both aircraft. Their Ghost of Kiev has digital camo in decal form, and also 1/72nd scale and 1/35th scale military vehicles. A lot of their Ukrainian kits actually have those digital camo decals supplied with them. But those are usually quite small, so they're like little bits that you put on a base. These are massive. These are for the entire vehicle. Obviously the same sort of idea. Transparent decals with a couple of the colour blocks that you put over a pre-painted third colour to give that digital camo effect. So it'd be interesting to see. I've not personally used any large decals like that from Trumpeter or Hobby Boss, so it'd be interesting to see how that actually turns out. And certainly it's kind of a trend that's going on with digital camo, because digital camo can be quite challenging. There's a lot of masking. You can buy pre-cut masks, but they're multi-stage, and so decals are another solution to that. They have their own challenges, of course, doing that. You've got to get them right, ripping, tearing, all those kinds of things, misplacement, folding. So it really depends on the quality of the decal on how that turns out. ICMs are quite challenging to use because they're very large. Having said that, my Ghost of Kiev kit turned out pretty well. Again, if you've not seen the video, I'll link that here. But the effect overall is fantastic, once you've actually got that. So, interesting development, and it's interesting to see so shortly after the military parade that we've got all of these kits coming out. Now, the other area that Trumpeter and the Hobby Boss have been focusing on are ships, and we've got a couple of interesting ones here. The first is the Scharnhorst, which is a obviously German World War II battleship. Scharnhorst was an Atlantic raider. It sank several Royal Navy ships, including a carrier, I believe, and was eventually sunk in an engagement. So it's quite an active, fairly short career, as most German naval ships had. But it didn't have the sort of ignominious end that Graf Spee or Tirpitz did. scuttled or bombed in port. Although probably better for their crews, it doesn't have the same sort of feel to it from a historical battle point of view. So Scharnhorst is coming out in 1/350th scale. It's got etched parts, it looks like it's got a lot of detail, it's got almost 1,000 parts in the kit. And it continues this trend of going to, quite large scale, 1/350th, 1/200th scale, big World War II battleships, carriers and the like. You can get a lot more detail in 1/350th compared to 1/700th, for instance, but they are pretty big, and it is kind of a statement piece ship, I think, like the Yamato, like the Bismarck, Tirpitz, etc. Now, the other ship that they are releasing is a really interesting one. This time it's a World War I ship, it's a Royal Navy vessel, and it's a monitor, which you don't see very often. Again, this is a 1/350th scale kit, and this vessel is one that I'd never heard of before. It's HMS General Wolfe, which sounds quite American to me, but when you look at the fact that it was actually a Lord Clive class monitor, kind of dates it. It's kind of very imperial sounding name, and it was actually laid down before World War I, and its job was basically to defend the Channel. So very slow moving, very heavily armed monitor. She was actually eventually fitted with an 18-inch gun, which is massive even by World War II standards, and was actually recorded in history as having the longest distance naval shot ever. Over 20 miles, 36,000 yards, bombarding positions in Belgium from the shore. So quite a bizarre ship. Again, never heard of it. Quite unique. 1/350th scale gives it a decent size. Monitors weren't that big. So I might actually look at picking that up, because I think that's a really unusual and interesting subject. And I think, again, as I've mentioned before in streams and things, that period going from the conversion around the start of the 20th century, from the 19th century, basically sailing ships, going to ironclads, and then the first sort of pre-dreadnoughts and dreadnoughts. Really interesting time. Very fast-paced naval development. So I think that's a really interesting model that we've got to look forward to. And again, it shows the diversification. I think if you mentioned this 20 years ago, people would have looked at you and think you were mad if you were going to bring out that sort of kit. But again, here we've got it. Very high quality, very high detail, photo etch, chain, it's got the works. So interesting one to look out for there. And then the last kit that we have from Trumpeter is the Mi-17, the HIP. So this was actually a development of the Mi-8 helicopter. It kind of looks a bit like a kind of Russian derivative of the Black Hawk. It's kind of got that similar sort of overall look. But it does look distinctly Russian. It's got that kind of... I think it looks a little bit like a Black Hawk and a hind had a baby. It's kind of got that weird mix of the two, but it's also got that kind of Soviet industrial look to it, where it's not really very finished. You've got just like big poles holding things structurally. This is 1/48 scale. It's got about 300 parts, I believe. Looks like it's got a full interior. It's also got some 3D printed parts, which is quite interesting. So, looks pretty detailed. And again, I don't know what it is about helicopters in the last couple of years. I say I'm not a helicopter guy. But again, this looks quite interesting. It's not an unusual subject necessarily, but it's a less usual subject. And the fact it's got all this just stuff happening with it makes it a little bit more interesting than some of the perhaps sort of slightly sleeker, more Western designs. So again, if you're into helicopters, this looks like a very nice kit. Looks like very nicely produced, lots of detail on there. And obviously if you want to super detail it, lots of options to go for there. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of aftermarket that comes out for that as well. So I think that's about it for this fairly brief Tuesday talk this week. I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at Telford. If you see me, please do come up and introduce yourself, say hello, have a chat. As I say, I'm going to be filming the event, so I'll be wandering around the halls for the whole weekend. I've got a press pass, so I'll be getting in earlier, so don't worry about interrupting me filming or something. It's fine, I can always refilm something, it's not a problem. and I'll already have access to stuff previously. So again, I've got plenty of time, so don't worry about any of that. Some people have said in the past, I didn't want to bother you. Absolutely not. I think for me, one of the best things about Telford is the social aspect. It's getting to meet people like you, people that I've not met before, people that have watched the channel, subscribed to the channel, supported me in the past. I think that's fantastic. So I'm more than happy to have a chat. And as I say, if you're a channel member and you'd like to come out for a meal on the Friday or Saturday night, please go to Discord. There is a members only post on YouTube, which gives you the link for that if you don't have it already. And then there's a link through there for when to meet, so you can sign up for there just so we get numbers for the tables. So again, that's all for me for this week. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye now. That's all for this instalment of Mann's Model Moments. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel for more like it, and share this video with others you think would also enjoy it. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and if you're feeling generous, then I also have a Patreon, which is absolutely the best way of helping me to grow the channel and produce more content like this. With that, I hope you have plenty of modelling moments of your own, and I look forward to welcoming you on the next video.